greatness inside of us. So let's rewind. Let's hop in the time machine and go back to 2007. And here's what was going on in my life in 2007. I was working for AT&T. I had a really nice, cushy job, a union job, which means I really didn't have to do very much work. And if you're a union employee, I'm sorry, but it's the truth, right? You don't have to do very much. So I was making about $70,000 a year with overtime and bonuses and things like that. And most of that income was disposable. I was just living it up, having a great time. Built my dream house, 3,000 square feet on 2 acres of land out in the country, and just having a great time. So it was the summer of 2007. The night before what I'm going to share with you, we went and visited friends up in East Lansing and in DeWitt, and we went strawberry picking with our families and our kids and stuff, and we had a fantastic time throwing rotten strawberries at each other. And we went home and we made strawberry jam, and it was just a fun time, right? And I remember saying to somebody, I could die right now, I'm happy. Little did I know, less than 24 hours later, it almost happened. So I was on my way to work the next day. I went to the gym and was on my way to work in downtown Detroit. And I know the streets of downtown Detroit and the areas outside of it very good because my family's lived in that neighborhood for 3 generations. There's been somebody in our family that lives out in that part of town. So I was taking a shortcut, and I get to this intersection. The streets there are narrow, probably like these rows of chairs. And I hear a siren as I get to an intersection. And as I tell you this, it's going to take me like 30 seconds to tell you this, but it actually took place in probably less than a second. So I get to this intersection, and I look to the left, and I say, oh, Jesus, there's nothing over there. So I know that siren's coming from here, and there's a building there, and before I know it, I get to the intersection at the exact same time as an 8-ton fire truck. Smashed my car. I was in a beat-up 94 Ford Ranger. Smashed my car, hit it one time, and back hit it, the front hit it again, and I came to and I could see the truck smoking. And I said, I gotta get out of here because this thing's gonna catch on fire. Because when you grew up as a kid in the 70s, every time there was a crash on chips, a car caught on fire. So I gotta get out of this thing, right? So I used every bit of adrenaline and strength that I could muster, and I banged the door open. The door wouldn't open because I got hit so hard that it kind of bit the car a little bit, like that. So I opened the door, and that was like it. That was the last bit of strength that I had, and I collapsed into the firefighter's arms. And he helped me to lay down on the ground. And an eerie silence fell over the accident scene. There was nobody walking on the streets. There were no cars driving up and down the streets. The firefighters were silent. And I could hear very faintly, because the fire truck was a little ways down the street, the guy on the radio, and he said, oh my God, send us an ambulance as fast as you can. I think we just killed the guy. So I'm laying there on the ground like, I'm about to die? Right here? On a Monday? On my way to work after having this great weekend? After moving into my dream house? This isn't fair. And EMS came, and then things kind of got chaotic. And they took me to the hospital, and one of the firefighters, it was his last day, he was retiring, he rode to the hospital, and he was on the cell phone the whole time. And he was just kind of yucking it up. It was a little bit irritating. And we got to the hospital, and they came out, and nurses came out, and doctors came out, and they said, yes, I'm going to get some help. But they grabbed the firefighter. Oh, Captain Prevost, what happened to you? Come on. And they left. And they put me in a hallway and strapped me to a gurney and checked me for weapons and left me there for an hour. How crazy is that, right? So I figured if I was going to die, I would have died already. They would have stuck me in the corner. Anyway, that was a terrible ordeal, right? Really, really bad. And the recovery process from that took almost a year. A year from some of the physical pain, and it just was a bad thing. So the fallout from that was that I had a brain injury, that I had physical pain and physical injuries from that. I had PTSD, depression. I became addicted to food and alcohol and prescription medications. That dream house that I had built on 2 acres, I lost it. I had to go. None of it was my fault, but it was all things that I had to deal with. So how do you deal with that? That's a lot of stuff. When it happened, I was thanking God that I survived, but a few weeks later, I was resentful. I was angry at God. How could you let this happen to me? I'm Chris Lee. This doesn't happen to me. This happens to other people. And that's what you would think. If you're in that type of a situation, this stuff not supposed to happen to me, right? So there was a lot of emotional healing that needed to take place. And there was a lot of emotional healing that was about to take place. And I'm going to read an excerpt from to you out of the book. And it came from a very, very unlikely place. So after the accident, I was off of work and I was in a rehabilitation program. Because I was on so many medications, I had a seizure. And when you have a seizure, you can't drive. With a brain injury, you shouldn't be driving anyway, but my license got taken away for a while. And so there was a sedan service that would take me back and forth to where I was rehabbing in Troy, Michigan. And my driver became a good friend of mine. He knew which days to be quiet, which days to talk to me, and we had a great time. So this is an excerpt of me sharing with Danny. One day after I felt comfortable enough, I told Danny about my past struggles with painkillers and alcohol. This was one of the best things I could have ever done because, as it turned out, Danny had been practicing sobriety for a number of years. Ah, well, you have to be kind to yourself, Chris, Danny stammered in his bizarre accent that was a mix of Ebonics with traces of a German accent sprinkled in. He no doubt picked up his Ebonics during the 30 years he had worked on the assembly line at Chrysler. Despite his tough exterior, he was a kind gentleman. He went on, "Don't beat yourself up. That never helped anybody to do better. You need God's help. None of us can do it on our own." That was the realest advice I had ever gotten. It really hit home for me. I didn't respond, and Danny, with his eyes on the road, drove quietly. The uncomfortable silence was broken up by the choppy digital female voice on the GPS. "Your exit is on the left in 2 miles. "Shut up, bald-headed Sally," Danny yelled out. We both erupted into thunderous laughter. Bald-headed Sally was the name we had given to the female voice on the GPS system after we became irritated one day at Sally's inability to give us accurate directions to an MRI appointment. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and Danny was proof. The support and encouragement that Danny offered on a daily basis was immeasurable. I was able to strengthen my resolve much more than I would have on my own. So I had all these therapists and all these doctors, and here this driver was the person who was helping me to heal the most.